Things are changing. As you'll notice, I have a different camera angle over there on that camera. Somebody took my tripod, so. But things are changing, not just in my setup here, but around the world, and the content of this episode has changed. I was going to talk about, originally I was going to talk about the Cultural Revolution in China. And why was I going to talk about that? Well, I'll summarize very quickly that the greatest danger to freedom in the world today is communist China, and China launched an attack on the world. Whether they engineered this virus or not, the smoking gun, as I've said in the past, is their concerted effort to make sure the whole world received the virus. They could have locked down their country when the spread happened in Wuhan, but they only locked down flights from Wuhan to China and left flights open from Wuhan to the rest of the world, guaranteeing that the whole world would suffer. It was literally a biological warfare on the entire world. And that's just the modus operandi of communism. And the reason I'll try and make this brief, but what China today has in common with the Ottoman Empire is ethnic superiority. That's really what's behind it. They're godless, and that's also partly why I want to talk about this, that the terrorists, the Azerbaijanis and the Turks destroying heritage, Armenian cultural, historical cultural sites, sacred sites. It's common to secular actors, godless actors, but there's another commonality is Pan-Turanism, which is the superiority of the Turkish race and taking over that part of the world. Well, that's exactly what China is doing. It's obviously not called Pan-Turanism. China has other terms for what they want to do, but they believe in the ethnic superiority of their particular gene pool. That's why they are the most racist nation. They do not consider other ethnicities on the same level as them. In fact, within their own nation, they intern ethnic minorities. But that's not what I'm talking about today, as you've seen by the title. I just wanted to mention that. Another thing I was going to talk about is the Cultural Revolution was right here on Wikipedia. The Four Olds was the terminology that was used by Mao and his henchmen that were charged with destroying the past. Mao was trying to suppress those who were opposed to him, and this philosophy, the Four Olds, the Four Old Things, a term used during the Cultural Revolution by the Red Guards in the People's Republic of China in reference to pre-communist elements of Chinese culture they attempted to destroy. The Four Olds were old ideas, old culture, old habits, and old customs. So anything old was seen as bad, and it was really a political play, a strategy to use propaganda to convince the populace that the new was good, and that's why we're destroying these. So million and a half Chinese people were killed during the Cultural Revolution, or more. Some numbers go up as far as like 70 million. I haven't researched it much, other than its similarity to what terrorists do by destroying cultural heritage sites. And I was also going to talk a little bit, I'll get to the topic in a second, about Taiwan and how it's similar to Artsakh. Because I'm only doing one video a day, I'll summarize these things. Taiwan was, I've always thought, was its own country, just as Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, is its own country down right here, which is not on this map. But China has never recognized Taiwan as its own nation. China, Beijing, has always considered Taiwan a property of China. And so if Taiwan is overtaken by China under the incoming administration, like if Biden does assume the presidency, China will be more emboldened to act as they have been, because they won't see as much resistance from the United States as they did under Donald Trump. So Taiwan's fate is similar, potentially similar to that of Artsakh. But those are all things I was going to talk about. What I really want to talk about, I want to read a few things real quick. When the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh on September 27 suddenly got the attention of the international, well, those who pay attention. The U.S. military, the U.S. government was paying attention. The European Union, the OCE, and the Minsk group got their attention. But when those things come to an apparent resolution, so there's not a hot war there right now, people tend to forget about it. And so that's the concern, that people forget about this conflict. The conflict is not over. It's nowhere near over. In fact, there's a lot of activity happening. And I just want to just quickly go through a few things. The French National Assembly adopts resolution on urgent need to recognize Nagorno-Karabakh. Again, that's the point of this channel. As you'll see right here, I didn't do this very well. Statehood for Artsakh. Fix that. Statehood for Artsakh, which means recognition of Nagorno-Karabakh as its own country, sovereignty, sovereign Artsakh. That's this channel. Don't forget to share and subscribe. Share and subscribe. We're growing here. Numbers are ticking up. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, click that button, that red button that says subscribe. Click it and then share this video. All right, back to you. So what is this? The French, didn't they already, I did a video about this, didn't they already pass this resolution to recognize Nagorno-Karabakh? Well, they did, and they passed another one, and so that means they're still on it. They didn't do this one thing and move on to other business. They're like, we need to recognize it. So I think it's still in Macron's hands. Let me just read this real quick. The National Assembly of France adopted a resolution today on the urgent need to recognize Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh. 188 MPs voted in favor of the resolution and 3 against it. Armin Press reports the resolution also records the fact that Azerbaijan thwarted the peace process by launching a military campaign and deployed terrorist groups in Nagorno-Karabakh with the support of Turkey. Last week, the French Senate had adopted a similar resolution urging the government to recognize the independence of Artsakh Republic. There's this guy, Armenians will know who this is. This is Serge Tankian, the singer for the heavy metal thrash band. I don't know if they're thrash. They're not really thrash, but System of a Down. Artsakh's recognition, the only way to guarantee safe life for Armenians in Artsakh. So this isn't my original idea, and obviously it's been other people's ideas for a long time. I'm just new to this and starting a whole channel based on this. So I'm in good company. World-renowned rock musician, soloist of System of a Down, soloist, says the recognition of Artsakh is the only way to guarantee a peaceful and safe life for the Armenians of Artsakh. The Senate passing the resolution was the first step. It's time for the National Assembly to vote yes, Tankian said on Facebook, once again calling on France to... Okay, so this is informational. It's time for the National Assembly to vote yes. I think that's, I guess, the step that needs to happen. But I want to finish with this long article, but this is a speech. The Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh cannot be placed under the jurisdiction of Azerbaijan Foreign Minister Ayvazyan. Now, this guy is speaking at the OSCE Minsk Ministerial Council. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to read most of it. During the 44 days of war, Azerbaijan and Turkey, in a clear defiance of their international obligations and in violations of their commitments toward the OSCE, despite numerous calls made by OSCE Minsk Group co-chair countries, despite 3 agreements to cease hostilities, despite persistent calls of international community, continued the offensive. The aggression was accompanied by numerous gross violations of the law and customs applicable in armed conflicts, by war crimes, including deliberate targeting of civilian population and critical infrastructure, executions, inhumane or degrading treatment of prisoners of war and civilian captives, beheadings, mutilations of dead bodies, and other well-documented crimes with the ultimate purpose of ethnic cleansing of the Armenian population from the ancestral lands. All right, my Azeri and Turkish friends, I know you all say you're just biased. The microphone's over here, so you're just biased, and you're just reading from Armenian sources, and this is not... He's not making this stuff up, okay? And that there's propaganda and there's truth, and there's only the two. There's lies and truth. Propaganda is lies, and the Azerbaijan government and the Turkish government, who are the perpetrators of these atrocities, who are the aggressors, who are the ones. Armenia did not attack Azerbaijan. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous for this peace-loving country that just wants to live in this land to go and start hostilities. Okay, just think about the logic of it. It's illogical. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't believe propaganda. You're a slave to lies if you believe your own country's propaganda. All right. I've been working with historians. Okay, so propaganda has been used forever, and it's the same propaganda from 100 years ago. That's not very long ago. In the span of history, 100 years ago, this is simply a continuation of a genocide that's well documented. The vast majority of scholars on the planet are in concurrence. They look at the data, and it's, oh, this is what really happened. There are a few extreme partisan wingnuts that say, oh, no, it's just fabricated lies by the Armenians. History is history, and you can actually determine what is most likely that happened, especially within the last couple centuries when documentation has grown and grown, right? 100 years ago, there were telephones, there were airplanes. It wasn't some ancient culture that can only inscribed in stone. There were people on typewriters typing up and radioing to one another. It's like it was modern technology was in full swing. The documentation of the genocide of 1.5 million Armenians, of 2 million Christians in Turkey, is historical fact. All right, back to this. In this context, we welcome the consensus reached on the draft ministerial council decision on the prevention and eradication of torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, which we consider as the most important outcome of this ministerial. Today, we should acknowledge the efforts of the Russian Federation and personal agenda of President Vladimir Putin in establishing a ceasefire and stopping war through providing peacekeeping forces on the ground. We are also grateful to France and the U.S. for their efforts and engagement to achieve a ceasefire. So he's addressing each of the three members of the Minsk group: Russia, France, and the United States. The actions of Azerbaijan and its allies created new dangerous precedent for addressing conflict situations in the area of responsibility of the OSCE. He has 4 points here, I think it's 4 points. First, it's the recruitment, transfer, and deployment of foreign terrorist fighters and jihadists from Syria and Libya in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict zone by Turkey, which flagrantly violates the international obligations and OSCE commitments on combating the phenomenon of the foreign terrorist fighters. This is the first time ever that 2 OSCE participating states have deployed terrorist fighters and jihadists in support of their armed forces in the context of conflict in the OSCE area of responsibility, a fact that was acknowledged not only by a number of the OSCE participating states, but the relevant UN body. What is he saying here? This is the first time ever that 2 OSCE participating states. So the OSCE is the Office of Security and Cooperation in Europe. And apparently Azerbaijan and Turkey are members of this OSCE group. So this is the first time ever that 2 OSCE participating states have deployed terrorist fighters and jihadists. Oof. Second, Azerbaijan aggression against Artsakh was greatly instigated and supported politically and militarily by the Turkish leadership in its pursuit of expansionist power projection to the South Caucasus and beyond. That's the pan-Turanism that I'm talking about. The expansionist power projection. They want to take over this whole region and just be an ethnically Turkish population. They don't want the Kurds there. Don't be mistaken. They don't want it's ethnic cleansing. They believe in the superiority of their genetic pool, Turks, which is a whole nother story because Turkism isn't even genetic these days because of what Ataturk did. I'll do another episode about what a Turk actually is. Third, Azerbaijan and its allies unleashed the war against Artsakh, falsely claiming the legitimate right to use force, which was a clear breach of international law. Furthermore, Azerbaijan and Turkey now insist that the situation resulting from the use of force, aggression, and war, large-scale violations of international law, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing should be considered as resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. We strongly condemn the use of force against the right of people of Nagorno-Karabakh to self-determination, and we will not accept any attempt to deprive the people of Nagorno-Karabakh of their rights. Despite assurances that we that have been voiced out today as well. Armenians have been ethnically cleansed from the territories of Nagorno-Karabakh, recently occupied by Azerbaijan. Those few who stayed were killed or tortured and expelled by Azerbaijani armed forces from their ancestral homeland. This reality clearly attests to the fact that Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh cannot be placed under the jurisdiction of Azerbaijan. Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh cannot be placed under the jurisdiction of Azerbaijan, period. The comprehensive resolution of the conflict aimed at achieving lasting and sustainable peace in the region include, and I'm just going to read these, there's more here, go to Armen Press and find this article. I'm just going to read these and wrap this up. The comprehensive resolution of the conflict aimed at achieving lasting and sustainable peace in the region include status of Artsakh based on realization of the right of self-determination, security of its people. Realization of the right of self-determination, that is statehood. Statehood for Artsakh, sovereign Artsakh. De-occupation by Azerbaijan of the territories of Nagorno-Karabakh. In other words, get out. This is like, yes, this agreement was signed on November 9th or 10th, depending on where you are in the world when it happened. This agreement was signed ceding territories that the aggressors had taken over, but that was just to get the fighting to stop. That doesn't mean they get to keep that land. Safe and dignified return to their homes of the recently displaced population of Artsakh. And finally, preservation of the Armenian cultural and religious heritage on the territories that fell under the control of Azerbaijan. Stop the genocide. That's what this is. Stop the genocide. It is genocide. All right. Subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. The good fight goes on.